juice.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Nickflanagan Weekly, your quattro time a week blast of podcastery from me, Nick. Some information you might want to know about me: 5'11", not 6 feet, as many people have figured I would be. No, sorry, 5'11". That's taller than Al Pacino. But shorter than Robert... No, it's probably about the exact size of Robert De Niro. But I don't have his wealth. Yet. I really think that in the coming years, I will star in ongoing iconic roles that will then allow me 20 years later to do demeaning parodies of those roles for far more money than I was paid for the initial role. What's the most you've ever paid for a role at a bakery? Any of my Los Angeles or Japanese listeners, it was probably a high amount, but here in Canada we have a roll maximum, so you can actually never pay more than 75 cents a roll. Just one of the many reasons you should move to Canada. But I may move out. I don't know if I'll stay here. This place is behind the times, man. There's too many people who say, yeah, like, I'm a fan of, like, real hip-hop. The amount of people in Toronto who are like, man, Drake is whack, whatever. And it's like, nobody knew about Toronto. I hate to tell you, buddy, this is all we got. I know he dates teens, and it's not good. But he's what we got, you know? We use what we have here. Can somebody explain to me the significance of the word pea meal? So was this a cured bacon that peas were ground into a sort of meal and then you would roll the bacon in the meal? Please tell me. It'll be a simple Google that I'm not willing to do. Hope your week's been going well. So far today's been incredibly stressful. But you know what? Less IBS than usual. So hopefully you're having a similar time in your life. And, you know, if you have a therapist, I'd like you to breach boundaries and give them a hug this week. If you have a psychiatrist, breach the even deeper boundaries and hug them even deeper. Also, isn't it interesting that I feel like the therapist plays the role that we all thought the psychiatrist used to play? Like, you know, you figure you go to the psychiatrist, you lie on a couch and he nods until, you tell him things. But no, that's kind of what you do at the therapist, except the new school therapist has a thing where they go, no, tell me more. Oh, I think we've made a breakthrough. I've never had a therapist tell me they think I made a breakthrough. But I have had a therapist say, all right, well, that's too much ideation for one session. Too much recounts of self-harm for one session. Just kidding, I keep that to myself because I think the most important way to move forward is to hide your worst trauma. Okay, welcome to Nick Flanagan Weekly. This is a podcast where I talk about heavy things, light things, and all in between. Today I've actually got live backing music for a bit of a change. The Dobro stylings of Newman, a musician based out of here in Toronto. I'm going to be trying to do this lately. If you like this idea, let me know. If you enjoy this style, I'm hoping to get some really neat musicians, and I think it's going to be a great way to just change things up here. And we'll talk to Kurt at the end of the program. So yeah, if you want to support the podcast, a great way to do it is just tell your friends about it, subscribe to it, review it if you can. And if you want to support it in a tangible way, I don't know, you could buy some of my used items if you're located in Toronto, selling some items. And you could pick up my album on Bandcamp, Nickflanagan.bandcamp.com. I've also written some articles for Bandcamp that you can read if you're on Bandcamp and just start snooping. Also, Kurt's on Bandcamp, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah. So, and if you want to get a comment or question read on air, weaklypodcast@gmail.com. This show is sponsored by A Love of Art. Just a curiosity about great art in the world is what sponsors this podcast. It's what gets us through the night over here at NF Weekly. And, if so, use my promo code, Nick, and try to get in the Louvre with it and see what happens. But it's not allowed at the MoMA. I don't know why they've banned its use at the MoMA. Okay, that's enough of that. I was listening to the new Lil Wayne. I just wrote some reviews. First reaction, Lil Wayne, Carter 5. Damn! I wish this were... I am putting this on YouTube as well, but you guys, I really want to do one of those reaction videos where you play, like, that first song. You see people, like, bobbing their heads and moving to that first song. Yeah, I can get into this. Oh! You know, I've never seen a reaction video be that negative yet. I think it's because you're always performing when you're doing like a reaction video. That's actually a horrible thing about the reaction video, is it becomes just this dare. How crazy can I react? What about Ice Bucket Challenge? Well, like during the reaction video to Eminem Kamikaze. That's my most recent round of reaction videos I've seen. Eminem went in! Did he just mention Bieber? Did I hear Lil Xan's name? What is going on? The funny thing is the fan base of this podcast, as far as I understand, understands none of the references that I make. All references I make are basically for like one individual, everyone will understand a reference I make, but it will all be a different reference. So everyone's getting about 1/10 of my referentiality. And frankly, you're not missing much. But yeah, the new Lil Wayne, he didn't put an album for 5 years. He went to jail. He had his addictions. He's been having seizures. He had arguments with Birdman, aka Baby, his surrogate dad or something. His father figure, his mentor, the head of Cash Money Records, now Young Money. And then they hugged on stage the other week. They hugged it out. And his new album, Carter 5, came out. His first album in 5 years. First Carter in 7. And it's fine. But, you know, he's always been pretty confusing. There's a line on the album where he goes, "If I die, blame the juice." And I keep hearing it, and I'm like, blame the Jews if you die? But I think he actually means, like, lean, because he's been addicted to that in his life. And I've never heard any anti-Semitism out of that guy's mouth. Who do you think he is? Lord Jamar? I don't even know if Lord Jamar is anti-Semitic. Professor Griff? Does he think he's Professor Griff? If he has an identity issue and now believes he's Professor Griff, he should seek help. And he should not see Kyle. But if the psychiatrist is named Kyle, he should see Kyle. I saw Gary Steingart speak. I didn't even comment about the album. I don't know. The album's fine. The production's fine. Someone named Zaytoven did production. I think that's a modern producer. Classic producer Manny Fresh did it. To me, there's no standout songs. Even the Carter 3 wasn't that good. It was okay. To me, I feel like Lil Wayne peaked with like all that stuff, the drought, all of his mixtapes, the sort of escalating point. Even the like father like son album with Birdman sounds amazing. And then like all the drugs, all the touring, it's just, he's been drained, tired, and out of it for a long time. But he did get better at rapping fast. So when he raps fast, that's pretty exciting. And that happens a couple times on records. I'm just saying there's no, what was that? The big song, the big hit from Carter 3. What was that called? You know what I'm talking about. From a goon to a goblin, all that stuff. And there's no 6 foot 7 foot, which is just like an extension of that song. But he does like go nuts in a few songs. It's just that he sounds a lot more. I feel like Kendrick Lamar set the bar of like exclamatory like histrionic rap, kind of where you're freaking out. Like he created a new lane of that, and Wayne falls in that lane more on this. Like Wayne doesn't sound quite as groundbreaking anymore, but it's only because he set the tone for what everybody was doing 5 years ago. Not to mention that I think him and Nicki Minaj and Drake either write for each other or influence each other or have the same team of writers. And they wind up sort of sounding like each other, except that Wayne has had such a small output for the last few years that he winds up sounding more like Nicki, or especially New Drake, which is fine. It's just like, again, when he's reflecting the flows of people, it's just not with... He was doing that when he first started, but he was twisting around the Jay-Z flow and bettering it and going... He was like doing... He kind of invented like... or popularized a sort of dumbing out on the mic, so to speak. Not to get deep, but it's like... If you dig down into Southern rap history, like the syrup type of Southern rap, you can find these incredible like 20 to 30 minute, hour-long ciphers of Southern rappers over screwed and chopped beats, and they might even be screwed and chopped. They might even be have slowed down vocals. He almost did like a hyper version of that, and that was what got popular. It was quite groundbreaking, or at least part of something that was groundbreaking. Yeah, the new record is fine, but I just don't think he's an LP guy. It's like Nicki Minaj. They're good, but it's like it's hard for them to kind of find a focus on the LP. That's all. So that's my take on Carter 5. If you agree or disagree, let me know. I've had people disagree with me about the Nicki Minaj record. Cardi B just got arrested, so maybe Nicki's gonna win the battle. Yeah, I saw an author named Gary Steingart speak last night. He wrote a book called Absurdistan, and super sad true love story, which is the only one I've read, and his new book is called Lake Success. And he was speaking at a library in Toronto yesterday, and it was a wonderful event. You got to go to these free library events. My friend Becky in LA got me doing that. I saw the two members of the Angola 3 speak, and in LA, those are guys who were on maybe not death. They were in solitary confinement for like 30 years. It's a very crazy story, and all these events are free. You just book to go to the library, then you're like watching this like interesting speech, and then you're in the middle of the downtown core of the city, and the world's your oyster after that, if you're at this particular library. Steingart was cool. I don't know. I mean, guy's 46. He's 8 years older than me. But, he looks like Wallace Shawn does now. Google Wallace Shawn. I'm burning you, Derry Steingart. No dairy for him. Maybe if he's a practicing Orthodox Jew. Yeah, I don't know. It's cool. There's something about watching an author getting interviewed that's like inherently smug. I don't understand what it is. It has a lot to do with the moderators, but it also has a lot to do with the tendency people have to try to please audiences, even if they're just authors. So they'll try to like have so many bon mots, and it's just like, I hate hearing. As a comedian, I just hate hearing the space for jokes that is given to people who aren't comedians. Like when they speak in public, it's like, They could say any line. Like Henry Rollins gets like waves of laughter for saying something that would basically get you stabbed in an open mic. For being shit. Because you know what kind of open mics I go to? The ones where if you don't bring it, you get bust in the face. I was going to talk about ADHD, but I'm running out of time, so I'm going to save that. Maybe I'll talk about it with Kurt. Okay, well, I'm just going to bring our guest over now. So I'm going to do that. And